Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. All right, real quick before we get started on the show, I'm just going to talk about Treeline Academy. You've heard me say it. I can't even tell you how many times. Mark Livesay is treelineacademy.net. That's treelineacademy.net. Sign up. Use the promo code PC2020. Save yourself $20. Can't say it enough. It's awesome, amazing, most comprehensive e-scouting course out there. Check it out for yourself. Sign up. Use promo code PC2020. And now let's get to the show. All right, so I'm sitting here and I'm talking to Daniel Colloms, and Daniel's got a pretty cool story to tell. So, Daniel, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself, man.
All right. Well, first off, thank you for having me on the podcast. It means a lot. But yeah, so to talk about myself, I'm 18. My name's Daniel, Daniel Colloms, and like what I'm most passionate about in life is God. I'm a Christian, and second of all, I'm extremely passionate about hunting, and I guess that's why I'm on here tonight.
Somebody told me about you and just kind of, they said, man, this kid super passionate about hunting, and I think he's going to have a huge year. And I've been following you on social media and kind of just seeing what you've been up to. And it's pretty cool. I mean, it's definitely cool to see somebody so young being able to do so many different things and go in so many places. And I mean, I didn't figure out Western hunting. Well, I shouldn't say figure out, because I haven't figured out anything in life yet, really. But never really wanted to pursue Western hunting until later in life. And man, you're 18 years old. You just turned, I mean, you were 17 years old, right? And you came to your parents and said, I want to go out west and hunt some stuff. And you went out. And could you kind of just like get into all that, like how it started, and where the archery thing kind of even started? You could start with that. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, so I started shooting archery in competition about, I think I started 2 years ago. I've been doing competition for a year and a half. But the Western hunting started 3.5 years ago. I went to Colorado. I saved up all my money from mowing grass, and I went out that year, wasn't successful. Went out the next year, I wasn't successful. And then the year after that, I went with my dad to Wyoming. We spent 2 weeks there, and I was lucky enough to get a pronghorn buck. And then I came back. I stayed at the house for a week, and then I went back out with my mom to Colorado, and I got a mule deer there. It was my first mule deer. I had an elk tag as well, but I didn't see any. So, but Western hunting, I've always wanted to do it. So that first, 3.5 years ago when I got the opportunity to, I took it right up because I love the West, always have, and I've always wanted to get an elk and all those majestic. There's so much, so much more fun hunting out there than here hunting whitetail because you have the opportunity to see all that stuff, and it's just beautiful out there. But that's pretty much it.
So let's kind of get in to the whole thing where, I mean, how far in advance were you planning this to go out and do your trip out west and do the whole Wyoming thing all by yourself?
The all by myself was just about 6 months before, but really it was last year. As soon as I got back from Wyoming, knew that I was going to go right back. So I've been saving, that whole year. This whole past summer, I didn't even eat lunches at work. I just packed lunches, and I was saving every penny and put in for all my tags and stuff. And lucky enough to draw that mule deer tag and then the 2 antelope tags in Wyoming. But I've been kind of preparing for it, for a year, but really only prepared for it, hardcore for about a month, getting everything together.
So, what kind of gear and everything did you have to get and prepare for that trip?
I bought a backpack. I bought a Safari backpack, sleeping bag, a new sleeping bag, a new cook set. I mean, pretty much everything. I spent a lot of money on it all, more than I would like to, but it was all good. And um, I was lucky enough. Uh, we got my tags the night before I turned 18, so it was the youth prices, so that saved me a few $100s right there. But um, yeah, it was a lot of money, but it was well worth it. It was the time of my life out there.
So let's get into that then. So you convinced your parents, or were they like, no, it's okay, go ahead and go out there, all by yourself, no hunting buddy, no nothing, or was there a little bit of convincing?
No, they were up for it, especially my dad and my mom both. They're both very laid back and totally okay with it. They knew that you know there's more of a chance that I get hurt doing anything else than going out there.
So you drove out. Did you break up the trip, or were you driving it straight through all by yourself? What'd you do?
I normally I do 12 hours one day and 12 hours the next day, 24 hours out there, and stayed when I was going out there the first night. I stayed at my mom's friend from college's house, and then ended up in Sundance, Wyoming. I stayed there again, and then went all the way into Middle Wyoming. So I guess it took me 2.5 days to get there.
And then kind of go into just the whole thing. You had two antelope tags and a mule deer tag, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. I had just the two antelope doe tags because I got my buck tag the year before. I didn't have enough points in any of the units, but in with my mule deer, that was in the Bighorn Mountains, and um, I was there for 2 3 weeks there, but I got my mule deer on the 11th or 12th day, and that was awesome. I was out there every day trying to spot up mule deer, and I went on several different stalks, and then ended up with the one I had. And then those days afterwards, I hooked up with a friend that lives there in Wyoming, and I helped him hunt some antelope and mule deer. And he had an elk tag as well because he lives there, and he was just in any general unit because he's lucky and lives in Wyoming. But we we hung out, so I was there for 3 weeks, and then after that, I went to eastern Wyoming and spent another 2 weeks there hunting those two antelope. Sorry.
So, how was it? Was it a spot and stock? I mean, did you use your bow when you got the mule deer, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was my first traditional kill. I guess I should have went into that, but the uh, mule deer. So I went on. That was my fourth stalk, and it wasn't really much of a stalk, but the three stalks before that was just they winded me or they saw me or something went wrong or the doe saw me. But on the story with the one I actually got, that same friend came in a couple days before just for the weekend. So we were driving around the roads, and there was this small 200-acre piece of BLM land. And as we were driving by, we saw these three monster mule deer out in the just happened to be in the 200 acres, surrounded by thousands of acres of the private. So that was right at dark, and we saw him. We watched him all the way until dark, and then he left the next day. And I decided that I would come back the next evening and just see if they were still doing the same thing, and they were. And I filmed them with my camera and everything. And I would have tried to do something about it, but they actually crossed the road, and on the across the road was another unit, so I couldn't do anything about it. So I figured, they were coming out about 5:45, so I went back the next night and set up in that edge of that field, and right at 5:30 they came out, and there was five of them in the group, and the biggest one was in the front. And I don't know how big he is. I'm not good at scoring mule deer. He was well outside the years, and I know that's big for a mule deer. Um, and he comes up at 15 yards, but the issue was I was at full draw forever because they were looking at me and I couldn't let down because I figured they were going to see my movement and bust off. Um, but they didn't. They didn't bust off, and they came. He came right up at 15 yards, and I was so weak at that point from holding my bow for. I was probably holding it back for 2 minutes, and with no let off, that's really hard to do. So I missed him low, and he him and all the other ones except the one that I got, which was the smallest one in the group, and he came out at, or he turned and stopped at 37 yards, and I knocked another arrow and got enough blood in my arms and pulled back, and I hit him a little far back, but um, he looked like he was done right when I shot him. He hunkered down and they kind of walked off, and then I went over there and there was no blood, so I gave him the whole night, and I came back the next morning. There was still no blood, and I was kind of discouraged because I thought there may be a chance I wasn't going to find him, but I just started doing a grid pattern in that whole 200 acres, and by God's grace, I ran over him. There was still no blood. I found the trail he went down, and I walked from him back to where I shot him. It was 380 yards. Is how far he went, and not a single drop of blood or hair or anything. And I was probably 5 feet from him when I first saw him because they blend in so well while they're dead. And that was an amazing feeling when I saw him and realized what I'd done, got my first traditional kill.
That's pretty cool. So then after that, you kind of, I mean, were you truck camping the whole time or camping, like, were you packing in and camping? What were you doing?
I was doing a little bit of both. Um, that I wanted to do more backpacking in and tent camping. I bought all the stuff for that. That's another thing I bought was a shelter system and everything. But where I was hunting was just so flat. It's like a giant prairie with just some topography. So there's no sense in packing in.
Right.
So I was hunting out of the truck most of the time, um, which was fine. But yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
Were you keeping yourself well fed or what were you doing for food out there?
So my dad and I dehydrated a bunch of meals. I was going to buy a bunch of like 100 of the peak refuel meals, and then I got to total, and it was like a lot of money. So to buy a dehydrator, and we're going to dehydrate all these meals. And my dad's a great cook. He's amazing in the kitchen. So we whipped up a bunch of meals, and I never ran out. But I was eating about two of them a day, and some oatmeal in the morning. And I probably had like 70 meals. I was well prepared.
So what kind of meals did you dehydrate? Kind of curious.
No, we had Mexican, tomatillo soup, pad thai, chili. Um, uh, the greatest thing of all was shrimp and grits, shrimp and cheese grits, and that was amazing. But
So where'd you get the idea to do the dehydrating of the meals?
I'm not really sure. I think it's just something we always knew about. My
Okay.
dad was into that before, so
Nice. That's cool. That's cool. I got we did an episode about dehydrating meals. So so anyway, so you went and after you got the mule deer, what'd you do? You packed it up in the cooler and just kept it cool the whole time or did you take it to a processor?
well, I was going to take it to a processor, and I got blessed really, really. I mean, I was really blessed here. The day that I found them, I got them to the truck, and when I got to the truck, I had a flat, and I was 13 miles from the town, and I didn't know what to do because there's no houses out there. You're just in the middle of nowhere. So and I was out of signal, and I was trying to get to the top of the mountain to call my dad to ask him what I should do. And I was lucky enough. There's some farmers came by and they helped me out because I didn't have any tools, and they put the spare on and everything. And then I got back to town, and I was going to drop it off in Buffalo and find a processor and pay them daily to freeze it until I left Wyoming. And I just happened to run into this person who's over a little RV park in Casey where I was hunting, and they we became good friends, and they were like, "Hey, you can just leave that mule deer in our freezers," and it was there for 3 weeks, and they never asked money for it or anything, and they were really awesome people. And then when I got my antelope, um, I ran into well my old I used to shoot sporting clays and skeet, and my old coach came out and he was like, "Hey, will you help me get? I had three antelope tags. You help me get those." So I took that antelope before back to them, and they freeze the antelope as well for 2 or 3 days, and then I took it all home over dry ice, and it was still frozen when I got home.
That's cool. So you shot two antelope right out there, and then you turned around, came home, and then how long you were home for a little bit, and then you turned right back around. So kind of give me the details on that.
Yeah, I was home for a week and a half, and then immediately went back to Colorado with the same group that I've been going with for the 3.5 years. And um, with the intentions of hunting hard, I said, I'm just going to give it all, give it my all, and hunt daylight till dark every day. And on the last morning, after all that work and in the freezing cold, um, it all came together that a herd of elk came through, and three cows, came out, and I was just waiting for the bull. I could just still hear it crashing down in the woods, and I was like, I knew he was going to step out because that was the same herd I've been kind of watching. I knew of, and he came out and shot him at like 150 yards, and that was yeah, it was probably the greatest day of my life because ever since I wanted to have an elk, and the fact it's a good elk for an over the counter. Like I don't know what the odds there are, but I think it's under 10%. Um, so not only that, it's a very good bull for that area, and I'm blessed with that. So that was an amazing trip.
Yeah, I gotta say, I mean, I hunted pretty close to the same area that you were in, and that was my first elk hunt, and I didn't even see any bulls. So you must have been doing something right, and your dad's buddy that was with you. I mean, it seems like he knew the area pretty well, and that's pretty cool that you got to go along with him and kind of learn all that from him and the area. Because I mean, man, like I said, I didn't even see any bulls, and I know that it was pretty hard. And talking to some of the townspeople and stuff like that, they were even telling me, oh yeah, like I think one or two was killed this season when I was there. I mean, it wasn't a lot of
Yeah.
animals taken, so that's a pretty good feat. And then you you kind of you turned around and you came home, and then you just had another pretty good success pretty shortly here, right? I mean, decided to
Uh,
do a little bit of what was it, rifle whitetail hunting or?
yeah, it was a rifle. Unfortunate part about that is he was within bow range, so I was a little disappointed, but it was my biggest whitetail of all time, and uh, in public land, and I was up the tree, and he came through at about 9 o'clock. Real old, real old deer. He was the game warden said probably in his mid sevens, so he was gray and bald on his head. His ear was ripped, where another buck had put the tine through and ripped it out. He was blind in one eye, had a big cyst on his neck, and Um, yeah, he was pretty mangled up, but I've always wanted to get an old deer like that. But it was my biggest whitetail to date. He came through at 9 o'clock, and at 30 yards, I shot him. I wish I had my recurve with me, but I shot 'em with my rifle, and another great experience. I've been very blessed this year to have all these.
Absolutely, you have. I mean, you were keeping that freezer full and feeding that big family of yours for
Yeah,
sure.
we had to buy two new freezers, test freezers, so we have a bunch of meat right now.
That's good. That's really cool. So when you were out in Colorado, you were kind of telling me that you had kind of, I mean, it was a neat experience, but at the same time, it was kind of, a little bit scary to think about. But can you kind of tell me about that?
The mountain lion
Yeah, that
experience.
one.
Yeah, so um, it was another kind of dream of mine to run into one of those things because they're awesome. But this one evening, I went out after a big snowstorm on the mountain. We came down because it was just snowing left to right and lightning and that stuff. But decided to go out to this spot where one of the guys told me to go, and it was just sitting there. I got up to the spot, sit down, and 5 minutes after I sit down, this big, I think it was a tom, came by at 10, 15 yards and just staring right at me, walking up the same trail I came up, just tracking me. Big mountain lion. And to it was pretty, it was pretty scary, but at the same time when he came through, I was uh I was kind of happy. I was, I
Yeah.
had a smile when I first saw him because it was kind of a dream, and then that you know that joy of seeing him kind of shrunk away when he pounced down like he was going to pounce on me. Kind of got low, and I racked the shell in the gun. Well, I pulled the trigger, and it was a dud shell. I mean, what are the odds of that go off? So I racked another one in and squeezed the trigger right over his head, and didn't do a thing. He eased up a little bit, but it didn't scare him off. So I was a little nervous at that point, but I kept yelling at him, and finally he just eased off and then stopped probably 30 yards in a bush just looking at me. And this went on for 5 minutes. He was looking at me and then just eased off. But it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially now that it's over with, because it could have turned
Yeah,
pretty ugly pretty quick. So I'm
I
glad
have,
glad you had the wherewithal to try and warn it and ward it off anyway, because it would have sucked if that one shell that was the dead shell and it tried to actually pounce on you. It would have been a different
I don't know.
outcome.
I was trying to find that shell, but once I racked it out, there was like 5 inches of snow on the ground. And I had no idea where it went. But one day I'll go up over there and try to find that shell
Yeah.
and cover it.
So what are your plans for the rest of the year then? Because hunting season's not quite over yet. What are you trying to do now?
It's not quite over yet, and I'm trying to. I'm gonna keep hunting whitetail and hopefully get another one of those. And I may try to maybe even get a couple does. I want to try to learn how to do taxidermy. And I was gonna do my buck that I shot, or I said the next buck I'm gonna shoot. I'm gonna learn how to taxidermy it, but myself. And then it had that big cyst and then the bald spots, and I want it to look really good with the blind eye. So I'm gonna get somebody to do that one. But I may shoot a doe and try to taxidermy that myself. Um, and then there's a oddball chance that I'll go to Alabama and hunt hogs. Um, that's just kind of a friend said that might be a chance. So hopefully that comes through.
So what
But
if you go do the hog hunt? What you gonna take a gun, or are you gonna take your bow, or what are you gonna do?
take my bow. There's a bunch of hogs down there, so I'm gonna try to get one with a bow.
What kind of arrow are you shooting with your bow? What's your setup?
Uh, my setup is a Hoyt Satori, and I have the Samick Discovery limbs on it. They're foam carbon limb, and then I have I think they're gold tip traditional XT and 200 grain Strickland up front with the collar. So I think it's like 275 grains up front. But it's a little slow of an arrow. It's like 700 something grains. Not the arrow's fault. It's my bow. I don't have enough weight on my bow.
I think that's
Not
okay though. I mean, you're hurling some serious mass, especially front of center like that. I wouldn't worry about a hog with that.
No. It went straight through my mule deer. It didn't even slow down. It
Yeah.
actually went in, it went 20 yards past it and stuck halfway in the dirt.
Yeah.
So
No, that's a pretty good setup. I was just kind of curious to see. I always like asking people what they do. I mean, like even my compound bow, I'm shooting a heavier arrow. I'm shooting like 618 grains. So I like adult arrows as well.
yeah, I
I'm,
like heavy. That's just I'm shooting 44 pounds, so it's kind of it's having a hard time shooting those arrows as fast as I like them to. But
yeah, that's not bad. I want to say my buddy's got a longbow with reflex deflex in the limb, so it's a little bit faster. And he's shooting like, I think his arrows are like 602 grains or something. Um, but he's shooting fast, like 177 feet per second with that, or something like that. I mean, that's cruising for a longbow with a heavy arrow like that. I couldn't believe it when we stuck it on the chrono, and I mean, I was only like 244 feet per second, so he's hanging in there pretty good.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, are you planning on doing like mule deer next year in Arizona, like beginning of the year or something, or what? Are you? I kind of heard somebody asking you if you're going to Arizona to do a little bit of archery in January.
It's a possibility. I When I was in Wyoming, I was pretty sure I was going to do it, but now I'm back and I'm trying to start a pressure washing business
Yeah,
and trying to all the money to buy all that stuff. And maybe I'll go, maybe I won't, but I would love to go hunt muleys
yeah,
again.
I think it'd be pretty cool. I'm still debating myself whether or not I want to go. I find it hard because, man, I wish I had the time that you had to go out and do all that, but life comes at you. So it's so cool to see you getting out there and doing it now and being able to do that because you just never know. And like me, if I burn up that vacation come January and then say I draw 2 elk tags, I'm cashed out for the year and I don't have any vacation left whatsoever to, spend time
Yeah.
with the kids and go somewhere or anything like that. So that's awesome. Definitely enjoy it and enjoy your youth like that, man, because it's fleeting. It leaves you so much faster than you realize. And it's awesome to just kind of see you out there doing what you're doing the whole public land DIY, and for an 18-year-old kid, I'm gonna call you a kid, making it happen. It's just neat. It's really cool, and I gotta say, Daniel, I'm pretty excited to kind of just keep watching, seeing where you're going. And it was definitely good having you on the show and talking to you and kind of getting to hear your story and being able to share it with people. So before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find you and follow you along on your journey and all that good stuff?
On the old Instagram at Public Land Dan or Daniel Colloms on Facebook. And yeah, I appreciate you having me on the podcast. It means a lot. And hopefully stretch out the hunting as long as I can.
Absolutely. Do you got a YouTube channel or anything like that?
No, but while I was out there, I filmed a lot, in my opinion, a bunch of stuff, and I'm gonna get that edited and try to get it on YouTube, and that will be under Public Land Dan. So maybe like if you're watching this podcast like a year later, maybe it'll be on there.
That's cool. No, I mean I I try to film things and do things, and half the time I forget to even take a picture because I find myself getting so wrapped up in the moment, which is a good thing, I guess, other than the fact that it's hard to share it with people other than just using words to convey it because you forgot to take a picture. But no, I get it.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool that you did that. And thanks for coming on, and good luck with everything you got coming up.
yeah. Thank you.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.